Okay, so are you ready to take a deep dive into Born a Crime with me?
Absolutely. I'm fascinated by Trevor Noah's story and how he uses humor to talk about such a heavy topic like apartheid.
It's really incredible. And we're looking at the Young Readers edition today, so we get that youthful perspective on it all, right?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that shapes the narrative.
Well, one thing that really struck me right off the bat was the anecdote where his mom throws him from a moving minibus.
Oh, yeah, that's a crazy story, but when you think about the context, it really highlights the constant danger Black South Africans faced even just trying to get around.
The minibuses were basically lawless, right?
Yeah, pretty much, often controlled by gangs fighting over routes. And, as a woman traveling alone with kids, Trevor's mom was a prime target.
So she had to think fast, and that decision to throw him out probably saved their lives.
It's a wild thought, isn't it? That kind of split-second decision-making just to survive a normal day.
It really makes you appreciate how different our realities are.
Yeah.
And this theme of navigating danger just keeps popping up throughout the book.
Totally. Like, even just growing up in Soweto, police raids were a constant threat. Trevor talks about developing this sixth sense for when to hide.
It's almost like he was conditioned from such a young age to be hyper aware of his surroundings.
Definitely, it's hard to imagine the kind of impact that has on a child's development.
But it wasn't just the political climate. Daily life in Soweto was tough too.
Oh, absolutely. He describes the slow process of building homes, the shared outdoor toilets, even the lack of basic things like toilet paper.
Which leads us to that hilarious story of him pooping on the kitchen floor as a kid.
Because he was too scared to go to the outhouse in the dark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, but it also highlights the lack of basic amenities that most of us take for granted.
It's a great example of how he uses humor to talk about serious issues.
Yeah.
And then you have the contrast with his experiences in white churches.
Everything's pristine and luxurious there.
He even thought toilet paper was only for white people because he'd never seen it at home.
It's a subtle detail, but it speaks volumes about the disparity between these two worlds.
And then there's the influence of religion itself, both white and black churches, on his upbringing.
It's fascinating how he was exposed to such different ways of worshiping.
It really shows the complexity of South African culture, even under apartheid.
And that brings us to another key theme language.
Ah, yes. Trevor's multilingual upbringing is a huge part of his story.
He grows up speaking Zulu Xhosa Afrikaans English.
He was a walking embodiment of South Africa's diversity, and he used language to navigate those complexities.
He even says he was a landmark in his neighborhood because he was the only light-skinned kid around.
That's incredible. He was literally a point of reference because of his race.
And language became his tool, right? He could code switch depending on who he was talking to.
Exactly, like charming his way out of trouble with the police by speaking Afrikaans.
It's like he had this secret weapon that allowed him to move through different social circles.
Language gave him a kind of social agility that was essential for survival in apartheid South Africa.
But even with that skill, he still struggled with his own identity.
Of course, being mixed race in a society obsessed with racial categories is bound to create conflict.
He talks about having to choose between the A class for white students and the B class for black students.
It's a powerful symbol of how apartheid forced people to conform to these arbitrary classifications.
And even when he chose to be with the black students, he faced rejection from colored people.
It's like he was constantly caught between worlds, never fully belonging anywhere.
It's that whole outsider within feeling, which is something a lot of people can relate to even today.
Absolutely. It speaks to that universal need for acceptance and belonging, which apartheid denied to so many.
And there's that heartbreaking story about him being bullied for picking mulberries.
And the adults around him just accepted that violence as normal.
It's chilling to think about how apartheid normalized aggression even amongst children.
It really makes you question how these experiences shape a person's worldview.
It's amazing he came out of it with a sense of humor intact.
I think his family, especially his mother, played a crucial role in that.
His mother is a force of nature in this book. She's so resourceful and dedicated to her son's well-being.
Definitely, she's like this unwavering source of strength throughout his life.
I love the story about how she named him Trevor. It was a name with no meaning or family history.
Really?
Yeah, it was her way of giving him a blank slate, a chance to define his own destiny.
Wow, that's powerful, especially in the context of apartheid where everything was so predetermined.
Exactly. And her belief in education was unwavering.
Hmm?
She scrimped and saved to send him to good schools, both white and black.
She understood that education was the key to breaking free from the limitations imposed by apartheid.
It wasn't just his mother. His relationship with his father is fascinating, too.
Yeah, despite the challenges posed by the Immorality Act, they managed to maintain a bond.
It shows you the power of family, even when the law tries to dictate who you can and can't love.
It's a reminder that human connection can transcend even the most absurd and unjust barriers.
And speaking of barriers, let's talk about his move to Eden Park, the colored neighborhood.
Right, even though everyone looked like him, he still felt like an outsider.
He talks about the pressure to fit in, to have the right clothes, the right cheese.
Cheese being slang for material possessions, right?
Exactly. It's interesting how even within a community, there are these subtle hierarchies based on what you have.
It speaks to that human desire for status and belonging, I guess.
But amidst all that striving, Trevor never loses his unique perspective.
He's always observing, analyzing, finding the humor in everything.
It's what makes him such a compelling storyteller.
Yeah.
He can take these complex social dynamics and make them relatable, even funny.
Without diminishing their seriousness, of course. He's got this incredible talent for finding the light in the darkness.
And then there's the hood, which draws him in with its own set of rules and opportunities.
It's a world where the lines between civilian and criminal are blurred.
People are hustling to make ends meet. Crime often fills the gaps left by the government.
It's almost like a shadow economy emerges, offering a sense of belonging and opportunity that's denied through legitimate avenues.
Which raises some important questions about why these systems exist in the first place.
Yeah, it's not just about individual choices. It's about lack of access, limited resources, a system that's stacked against you.
Like the story of his friend G getting fired from his job.
And then seemingly sabotaging himself to get back into the groove.
It shows how hard it is to break free from these cycles, especially when everyone around you is stuck in them.
It's a powerful illustration of the pull of the hood.
And then there's the episode where Trevor gets arrested for playing music too loud.
Oh, yeah. The cops try to extort a bribe from him.
It's a classic example of the corruption and injustice within the legal system.
It highlights how easily the system can be manipulated to target and exploit vulnerable individuals.
It's disturbing to see how easily those in power can abuse their authority.
But it also shows Trevor's resourcefulness, his ability to use his wit to navigate a dangerous situation.
He's definitely a survivor.
Yeah.
And those experiences in the hood clearly shaped him profoundly.
Oh, absolutely. They gave him a unique perspective on South African society, a perspective that he brings to his comedy and his writing with honesty, humor, and remarkable insight. You know, we can't talk about Trevor's life without discussing his stepfather, Abel. He really looms large over the story.
Yeah, it's a complicated relationship for sure. Abel is this really complex character.
Right, because on the one hand, he can be charming and even fatherly towards Trevor.
But then he's got this dark side, this explosive temper that just erupts out of nowhere.
It creates this unsettling feeling throughout the book, like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
You get these early glimpses of his violence, like when he burns down the garage.
Oh yeah, that was a major red flag. It shows just how deep his anger runs and how little control he has over it.
And it foreshadows the violence that ultimately leads to the shooting of Trevor's mother.
It's hard to read those parts knowing what's coming.
And what's heartbreaking is that Trevor tries to warn his mother about Abel.
But she's so determined to make the relationship work.
I think she was longing for that stability, that family unit, even if it meant ignoring the warning signs.
It's a reminder that we all make choices in relationships. Sometimes those choices aren't the best ones.
And then the shooting itself. It's just a harrowing scene.
You're right there with Trevor and his brother Andrew as they race to the hospital.
Not knowing if their mother's going to survive.
It's a stark reminder of the devastating impact of domestic violence.
And how it affects everyone involved, not just the victim.
Absolutely. It ripples outward, impacting entire families, communities.
But amidst all this chaos, you see Trevor's character really shine.
He takes charge, right? Dealing with the hospital bureaucracy, comforting his brother.
He even confronts Abel over the phone.
It's incredible how resilient he is in that moment.
He draws upon all that strength he's developed from dealing with apartheid and just life in general.
It's like all those challenges have prepared him for this moment.
And his mother, even after being shot, she's still so strong and composed.
Her first thought is for her sons. She's more worried about them than herself.
Her strength is really remarkable, and her faith plays a big role in that.
Definitely she has this incredible capacity for forgiveness.
Which is hard to understand, right?
It's not about condoning Abel's actions. It's about releasing herself from the burden of anger and resentment.
It's about choosing to move forward with hope and compassion.
And that's a powerful message, especially in today's world.
where forgiveness and understanding can sometimes feel in short supply.
Absolutely. We could all learn a thing or two from her example.
And this theme of faith that runs throughout the book,
Trevor grapples with his own beliefs, right? Influenced by both his mother and his father.
it's a reminder that faith is a personal journey shaped by our own experiences and the people we love.
And it ties into the broader theme of identity, which is central to Trevor's story.
Being mixed race in apartheid South Africa meant he was constantly navigating these complex social dynamics.
He talks about being rejected by both Black and colored communities, never truly fitting in.
He makes this insightful observation about how it's easier to be an insider as an outsider than an outsider within.
It's a powerful statement about the way society tries to force us into these neat little boxes
Right.
based on race or other superficial characteristics.
He compares how the Holocaust is taught in Germany to how apartheid is handled in South Africa.
He argues that there's this reluctance to fully confront the emotional and moral complexities of the past.
It's a challenge that many societies face, right, reckoning with historical injustices.
How do we acknowledge the past without getting stuck in it? How do we move forward together while honoring the pain and suffering that have shaped us?
It's a difficult question, but it's one that we need to keep asking.
Absolutely. And despite all the heavy themes, Trevor's story ultimately offers a message of hope and resilience.
He shows how humor can be a coping mechanism, a way to find light in the darkness.
His ability to inject humor into even the most difficult situations is truly inspiring.
And let's not forget his entrepreneurial spirit.
Right. From selling pirated CDs to DJing, he's always hustling, finding creative ways to make a living.
It's about more than just money. It's about empowerment, self-reliance, a belief in his own ability to succeed.
He pushes boundaries, takes risks, and consistently finds opportunities where others might see only obstacles.
And this self-belief is tested when he gets arrested for driving a car with fake license plates.
That's a scary moment. It highlights how quickly things can go wrong.
But even then, he manages to stay calm and collected. He uses his wit to navigate the situation.
It's another testament to his resilience, his ability to adapt and survive.
His story is ultimately one of transformation, of finding your voice and using it to challenge the status quo.
It's about the power of humor to heal and connect, the importance of family and community, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. It's not just about personal forgiveness, though, is it? Trevor really pushes us to think about reconciliation on a bigger scale, like societal reconciliation.
Yeah, he's critical of how South Africa has dealt with the legacy of apartheid, isn't he?
Exactly. He says there's this reluctance to really dig deep and confront the emotional and moral baggage of the past.
He even compares it to how Germany has grappled with the Holocaust, doesn't he?
He does, and he suggests that South Africa needs a more honest and open dialogue to truly heal from the wounds of apartheid.
It's a tough conversation to have for sure.
It is, and it's something a lot of countries are dealing with right now as they come to terms with their own histories of colonialism, slavery, systemic racism, you know.
It's like, how do we acknowledge the past without getting stuck in it? How do we move forward together while still recognizing the pain that shaped us?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I don't think Born a Crime pretends to have all the answers.
No, it doesn't. But it encourages us to at least start asking these questions, to really listen to each other and be open to different perspectives.
And it reminds us that even amidst all the heavy stuff, the individual stories matter, too.
No, absolutely. Like, he talks about the dynamics between the cheese boys and the real hood guys.
It's a fascinating look at how even within a community, there are these subtle social hierarchies based on, who has what and who acts how.
It shows that even poverty isn't a one-size-fits-all experience, right?
No, it's not. There are different levels of struggle, different aspirations, and different ways of navigating those challenges.
And Trevor's entrepreneurial journey is a great example of that.
Oh, for sure. From selling pirated CDs to DJing, he's always looking for ways to create his own opportunities.
Like that story where he starts charging a commission to buy snacks for his classmates during assembly.
Even as a kid, he had that entrepreneurial spirit, always looking for a way to make things happen.
It's inspiring, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
It shows that you
Yeah.
don't have to be limited by your circumstances.
You can create your own path. And that belief is really tested when he gets arrested for driving a car with fake license plates.
That whole episode is so intense,
It shows how quickly things can go wrong, how easily your life can be turned upside down.
and how the system is often rigged against those who are already marginalized.
But even in that situation, Trevor stays calm and collected. He uses his wit and his knowledge of the system to get himself out of trouble.
He's a survivor, that's for sure.
Yeah.
His story is ultimately about finding your voice
Mhm.
and using it to challenge the status quo.
It's about the power of humor to connect and heal, the importance of family and community, and above all, the resilience of the human spirit.
So what can we take away from Born a Crime and apply to our own lives? What does it all mean for us?
Well, for me, it's a reminder that everyone has a story, and sometimes the most powerful stories come from the most unexpected places.
It encourages us to listen with open hearts and minds and be willing to challenge our own assumptions.
And maybe even more importantly, it's a call to action, to use our voices, to speak out against injustice, and to be agents of change in our own communities.
And to remember that even in the face of adversity, there's always hope. There's always a possibility of finding humor, connection, and meaning in the darkest of times.
Born a Crime is a testament to that. It's about finding your voice and using it to make a difference. And if you want to dive deeper into Trevor's story, you can find a link to the book on Amazon in the episode description.
And don't forget to subscribe to our One Book a Day YouTube channel for more deep dives into amazing books like this one. Thanks for joining us.